So here's an article from Reuters says Iran blames Israel for Natanz nuclear plant outage and vows revenge. So Natanz is, I believe, one of the largest, if not the largest, nuclear sites in Iran, and it has been under fire almost literally. It's had explosions and outages and random things happening to that power plant as well as others in Iran for quite some time now. And this sort of low-key sabotaging of Iran has been going on for a few years. Very ports and ships and nuclear sites and electrical, warehouses, manufacturing, all of these kind of strange events would happen that involved fires, explosions, outages. All of that's been kind of low key going on in Iran. And Iran has always blamed Israel. And Israel says, if it's not us, it should be. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't us. I don't know. So Israel's not really denying it. They're also not necessarily saying, yeah, we did it. But Iran says, we know you did it. You're the only ones that are doing this to us. You guys continue to sabotage us. And the big question is, now they're saying they're going to get revenge. The big question is, what is that revenge going to be? Are we finally at the brink of war? Hopefully not with Iran. Hopefully Iran has not finally lost its patience. They've been holding steady for a really, really long time, despite all of the low-key attacks on their country, despite the sanctions. Despite all of that, Iran has held steady and has refused to take the bait to march into war, to retaliate. When they do something, it's more symbolic. It's not meant to actually cause harm. It's not meant to instigate war. They're very measured in how they respond when something happens to them. Something really big happens to them, like the killing of General Soleimani, and they respond definitely in a more muted way. They don't come after the U.S. or Israel nearly to the same level that we seem to be going after them, or we are going after them. Not seeming, we are. I mean, it's verified, right? So they said that, here's the article from Reuters says, Iran on Monday accused arch foe Israel of sabotaging its key Natanz nuclear site and vowed revenge for an attack that appeared to be the latest episode in a long-running covert war. Iran said the person who caused an electricity outage in one of the production halls at the underground uranium enrichment plant had been identified. Quote, necessary measures are being taken to arrest this person, Iranian state media reported without giving further details. The incident occurred amid diplomatic efforts by Iran and the United States to revive Tehran's 2015 nuclear deal with major powers, an accord Israel fiercely opposed after former U.S. President Donald Trump abandoned it 3 years ago. Last week, Iran and the global powers had what they described as constructive talks to salvage the deal, which has unraveled as Iran has breached its limits on sensitive uranium enrichment since Trump reimposed harsh sanctions on Tehran. Iranian authorities described the incident a day earlier as an act of nuclear terrorism and said Tehran reserved the right to take action against the perpetrators. So right now, the U.S. and Iran have been in talks for the Iran nuclear deal. This has now caused a bit of a rift. When Iran says we're going to get revenge on Israel, that has caused a lot of our lawmakers to say, ooh, that kind of rhetoric, I don't know. We're supported by the Israeli lobby, or a lot of us are, in cahoots. And so, that's not really exactly the best thing we want to hear when you're talking about revenge. We can't really make a deal with you. However, U.S. authorities are now saying, no, we're going to continue on with these talks despite that rhetoric. We're going to continue forward. And again, like I said, Iran has been very measured in how it's responded each time their country's been attacked. You could never imagine the U.S. or Israel acting this way, being so measured, if we were under the same sort of attacks. If we found out that our nuclear sites, our manufacturing hubs, our ports, ships, you name it, were being sabotaged by a foreign entity, we would be at war by now. There's no doubt. Missiles would have been fired. We would be at war by now. Yet here's Iran taking it over and over and over again and sitting there and doing nothing. And yet they're the ones accused. I just want to make this point. Iran is the one accused of being the bully, right? Iran is the one being accused of being the bad guy. Yet all they ever do is just take it. And yes, of course, they do things. They're not passive by any means. They definitely are defending their position in the Middle East. They're helping their allies. They are supporting, training, arming, doing a variety of things in order to help push Western influence out of the Middle East. And that obviously has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But beyond that, Iran stays pretty measured when it comes to how they're responding. So we're going to see, from this, as Israel continues to sabotage Iran, that will escalate, would be my guess, as the talks get more serious with the Iran nuclear deal, reviving that deal. My guess is that things are going to get more and more intense, and they're going to try to do more to antagonize Iran. And my guess is Iran will still hold the course. But the big question will be then, what will the U.S. do? Will the U.S. go forward with a deal with Iran? Or will the U.S. kind of take the hint and say, okay, you really don't want us to do this deal, and you're really continuing to escalate, negative events in order to potentially bait into war. And there's always, of course, the false flag possibility that, but Iran's pretty quick to come out and say that wasn't us. So unless there's definitive proof that Iran did it, I don't know if we're going to buy it. So if there is a false flag event that happens, and they're trying to frame Iran for doing some terrible attack against the United States, I wouldn't put it past that from happening. I would hope not. But if it did, I think that there would need to be, I guess, yeah. I mean, I don't want to go down that road of like, how bad would it have to be before people just say, do it, bomb them, go after them. We don't need evidence. We'll take your word for it. George W. Bush, weapons of mass destruction. I would hope that we just don't fall for it again. But you never know. You never know. And you never know what the future holds. And we never know what's going to happen when it comes to all of these events. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. The Iranian people definitely are living a hard life right now with all these sanctions. It would be nice for them if these sanctions are lifted. So it would be good to get back into that nuclear deal in order to help them, alleviate some of the stress on the Iranian population at this point. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you. Please email me your thoughts, your questions, your comments, anything you would like to get across to me. You can, kim@kimiverson.com, or you can join my locals community where you can post freely and let me know all the things that are on your mind and share articles with me and even videos and whatnot. So I have some of you making videos, chatting with me on locals, which is pretty cool. So that way I can see you. You don't just see me. See.